Welcome to Dopamine Pulse. Today, we're diving deep into the underground, where hip-hop and graffiti collide. These two art forms have been shaping culture for decades, but how did they become connected? And what makes their bond so powerful? To understand this connection, we have to go back to the 1970s. New York City was raw. The Bronx, in particular, was struggling with poverty, crime, and a lack of opportunity. But from these streets, something revolutionary was emerging. While DJs were mixing beats at block parties and MCs were spitting rhymes, another movement was taking shape: graffiti. Graffiti wasn't just random scribbles. It was a form of self-expression, an underground language. Writers like Taki-183 and Phase 2 were leaving their names on the walls of the city, claiming space in a world that often ignored them. At the same time, hip-hop was giving young artists a new voice. DJs like Kool Herc and Grandmaster Flash were turning turntables into instruments. Rappers were telling the stories of their streets. These two movements grew together, feeding off the same energy. Hip-hop brought the sound, graffiti brought the visuals. If rap was poetry, graffiti was the illustration. It was all about making a mark, whether it was on a mic or a subway train. It was rebellion. It was identity. It was survival. By the 1980s, hip-hop had its four key elements: MCing, DJing, breakdancing, and graffiti. They were all part of the same culture, each one adding to the movement. Hip-hop was getting bigger, record labels took notice, and soon rap was on the radio and TV. But what about graffiti? Some graffiti artists moved into the art world. Names like Jean-Michel Basquiat and Keith Haring took street art to galleries. But the raw, illegal side of graffiti never disappeared. The streets still belonged to the writers. Fast forward to today, hip-hop is mainstream. It dominates fashion, film, and pop culture. But graffiti, it's still walking the line between art and rebellion. Street artists are creating massive murals, selling paintings for millions, and collaborating with brands. But at its core, graffiti still represents resistance, the fight for visibility, the need to be heard. Graffiti was never just an American thing. By the 1990s, it had spread worldwide. Paris, Berlin, São Paulo, Tokyo, every major city had its own graffiti scene. And hip-hop had gone global too. Graffiti wasn't just about tagging anymore. It became political, personal, and commercial. Brands started using graffiti aesthetics. Streetwear embraced it. And legendary street artists like Banksy turned it into a tool for activism. Even though hip-hop and graffiti evolved in different directions, their connection never broke. They both still stand for self-expression, for rebellion, for taking control of your own voice. So where are we today? Hip-hop is the biggest genre in the world. It's on every platform, every playlist. It runs the culture. And graffiti? It's still in the streets, but it's also in museums, on sneakers, on fashion runways, in video games, and on Instagram feeds. It's no longer just a subculture, it's pop culture. But one thing hasn't changed. Graffiti and hip-hop still belong to the streets. The energy, the rawness, the spirit of self-expression, that's what keeps them connected. Hip-hop gave the streets a voice. Graffiti gave it a face. Together, they shaped the world. And even though the game has changed, the roots remain the same. The culture lives on, in the music, in the art, in the streets. This is Dopamine Pulse, and that was the underground connection between graffiti and hip-hop. Stay tuned for more untold stories from the culture. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next drop.